Welcome, everyone, to Career Happy Hour. It's Andrew Beach, Executive Coach. I'm a teacher of self-education. I help professionals like you communicate their value to find great opportunities faster, whether you're working or not. That's through a pragmatic process of branding, planning, and networking. Professionally speaking, of course, not technology-wise. And today is Career Happy Hour. It's 3 p.m. Pacific time. Every Friday, I will be here. I'd like to know where you're joining from. Can you hear me on the audio? Let me make sure that we're reading loud and clear here on LinkedIn. Looks like we are. Excellent. I'll, let's see, mute that site. Good. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. We'll just wait a while here to get everybody into the session. Sometimes it takes a minute for it to pop up on the notifications for everybody. But while you're waiting, I think it's important to maybe think about sharing this broadcast out to people you know. It's very simple. Regardless of the platform you're on, whether that's LinkedIn, Periscope, YouTube, or Facebook, just click a link, share it out to your circle of influence, and let people know that we're here every Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific time, to answer any questions that you have about career, whether that's interviewing, market planning, networking, what jobs are great for me, how do I do a career change, how do I know, which is, by the way, the topic of the discussion today, how do I know when the interviews are over? And we'll go through that because I think a lot of people have had questions about that. And so that's the topic of discussion. How do I know when the interview is over? And by the way, this is free. It's free coaching for you. So put your questions in the chat. You can also come on live. Regardless of the platform you're on, there should be a link in the description that says join me live. And you can come on live with me right now, and I can answer hands-on any question that you have. Just make sure that you have a webcam, a decent microphone. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. And that you're in a quiet place. And certainly if you're joining from a platform, you need to make sure whatever platform you join from, that you mute that other side or pause the video so that we don't get an echo when we're broadcasting. Otherwise, I'd really encourage you to put your questions in the chat so that we can move forward in this process. Good. I don't see any questions here. If you're just joining, go ahead also, if you're on LinkedIn or regardless of what platform you're on, put your LinkedIn profile in the chat because this is a career-focused stream. A lot of the folks are joining from LinkedIn. So we want people to connect, collaborate, have offline discussions on LinkedIn. So if you're joining and you're on LinkedIn, go ahead and put in the chat where you're joining from, your LinkedIn profile, and any questions that you might have. Absolutely. Good. Career cocktail hour from Northeast Portland. Yes. You know, Terry has renamed today the 3 o'clock session as cocktail hour. I like that idea. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. And you know, I looked at it this way, is that typically at least in Portland, I don't know about your neck of the woods, but 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., I think that's about the time frame, is when they have the happy hour value menu at the restaurants and the bars and so forth. And, you know, we used to take off work maybe a little early, not too much, to grab those special deals on a Friday. And so that's why I like having this positioned that way. Good. Excellent. And why not? And why not? Why not leave early on a little bit on a Friday? Good. So today's topic really is something that I was approached on, and I wanted to take it from a number of different perspectives. And that is from a position of how do I know when an interview is over? And I think the bigger question is, when am I not interviewing? When am I not interviewing? And I would suspect that you're always interviewing. Just like, you know, I say, hey, when do you negotiate? People say, well, we're always negotiating. No, you're always influencing. You're not always negotiating. And the influence comes from the interview. Now, an interview can start with a networking conversation, an introduction from a friend, a Christmas card. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen to generate influence and interaction. And so let's assume, for the most part, that you're always interviewing. Okay. You're not always negotiating and you're not always talking about a job, but you are interviewing all the time. That means that your professionalism, whether that's in a personal context or a professional context at work, through somebody you met through church or what have you, through a networking situation, you're always interviewing. Okay. And so here's a scenario that I had presented to me just this morning, in fact. And that is, young gentleman or gal, I'm not quite sure. How would you call it? Immigrant trying to get a job here in the United States, interviewed with a company, hadn't heard anything back. And, it sounds like that process is over. And truthfully, the process has just begun. That one interview is not the end. That one interview is actually the beginning. And not uncommon, and there's probably a bunch of folks here that have wanted to work for a particular company, maybe had multiple, if not separate positions, the same position, multiple interviews with that company for a job. Let's take a job as a context. Well, guess what? Just because you interviewed for the job doesn't mean the interviewing is over. It's never over. Let's just assume that. In fact, I've seen some candidates I've collaborated with 9+ interviews, 9 interviews to get a job offer. There's an initial screen. There was an interview with the managing director. There was a round of interviews individually with area directors. Right there, it was like an experience. It was like 7-8 weeks of interviewing, and it seemed like it would never end. And so sometimes we don't know. We don't know when it's going to end. And we may get buying indicators for sure, right? Just like a sales process. When you're interviewing, there's a buying indicator. Hey, could I get a list of your references? Buying indicator. Hey, I see that you have some work samples. Could I see your work samples? Buying indicator. Okay. Hey, I'd like you to meet with the executive leadership team. That's a buying indicator. Okay. So as you continue through a interview process, you will get little indicators as you go through this process that is continuing. Those little buying indicators are great, but when does it end? Does it end with the offer? I don't think it ends with the offer, because now guess what? Even though you have an offer and you may be onboarding, you're interviewing for the next thing, the next role. And I know that sounds a little over the top, or maybe a little too much pressure. But if we have this mindset that we're always interviewing for something, we will always be prepared. And that's the idea. Be prepared, be confident, know your narratives, have a good, compelling story, right? A brand. Some people call it a brand. I just call it an identity. What's your identity outside of your job title at company? That's what we're talking about today. Okay. So we never stop interviewing, not ever. And so here's the thing. I see everybody putting their LinkedIn profiles in the chat. I appreciate that. What's that signaling? That's signaling to anybody in the chat, and maybe anybody that comes after this, that you are open to network with them. Okay. So recognize you've just made a commitment to this community, that if someone reaches out to you, you will say yes to a conversation offline, whether that's by Zoom, phone, Skype, whatever you got, you're saying yes to that. Okay. And so if you have any questions, I'm not here to just, wax poetic. I suppose I could talk all day about interviewing and such, and we could do a whole session on that. Because that's something I know a little bit about. I've helped a lot of people prep for interviews that way. All the way up to C-suite, right? Some frontline to C-suite. So I get the process. I understand what it's like from a candidate perspective. Why? Because I've been a candidate, okay? And I've helped others prepare for those situations. So keep that in mind. If you have any questions, put those in the chat box. I want to hear your questions so that I can be of service to you. I'm not just here for me. I am here for you, okay? Let's see here. Let's see if there's any questions I missed. Yes, I agree. Hello from Vancouver. Yes. Hey, hi, Connor. Good to see you. Thanks for coming. Yeah, everybody connect with Connor. He's a good guy. He's getting his feet wet with the networking. So I think it's really important that, we help our junior members of the team here, our junior members of the community, get their feet wet. And so if you could, please connect with Connor and make yourself available, accessible, I'd appreciate that. And I'm sure he's not the only one here. So if you see somebody's name in the chat, then certainly you can take a peek at that and connect with them and ask for a time offline. Tell them you saw, hey, I saw you on Andrew's Career Happy Hour. I want to connect with you and have a conversation. Perfectly acceptable. Okay. Good deal. Awesome. So back to the interview. So one thing that came up in this conversation, let me go back. I want to see the exact phraseology of the question, and I'll share it with you verbally. I won't share who it is specifically. Okay. Let's see. The candidates I'm working with got to speak with our recruiter and didn't make it to the hiring manager. He's interested to know what to do next and how to ask the hiring manager to reconsider his application, as he really likes this role. Well, I'll just take that as a segment. Okay. The first thing is mindset. Job search and a lot of your professional career management is about mindset. And if I have a mindset that this is like the city bus, there's going to be another one come along. I haven't seen anybody get lifetime employment. So what does that mean? Lifetime employment is not a reality so much anymore. That means another job like that will come available because people get what? They get fired. They get laid off. They retire. They relocate. They get promoted. I mean, I could list 1,000 reasons why a job posting comes available. And if we think that that's the last one that there ever was, I don't think that's appropriate. But good news, you had a chance to meet a recruiter. And now you have a contact point. Now I'm thinking, okay, how do I extend beyond the recruiter to people in the operation? And what can I come at them with that's a compelling conversation other than my need for employment? And so here's the funny part, the rub, the paradox, if you will, is that you make it about your need for employment and you won't get employment most of the time, because nobody is as interested in your employability or employment as you. They're interested in their own, right? For a lot of reasons. And yes, they may be willing to help you in some fashion, but that's not a relationship of mutual exchange. That's a relationship of what I would call demand. And those relationships are on thin ice, if you will, not a relationship on a strong foundation. Strong foundation says if I make it not about my need for employment, and I talk to somebody in the operation about a strategic paradigm shift, like how are you navigating the pandemic? How is that impacting you personally? What does it look like in your organization in a work from home situation? I'm asking a lot of compelling questions of interest, genuine interest, by the way, not made up interest. I'm not going to make up some questions or grab some questions off the internet. Not that that isn't valuable as a guide. I just wouldn't look at it as a ABC 1, 2, 3. I need to create my own questions so that when I go and network with somebody, I have a compelling conversation and I come out of it with something more valuable than a job. I come out with a relationship. If I have a relationship of trust, most anybody will bend over backwards for me. Okay. I know because I've executed that. How do I know? Because I give. And then when I ask for something, it's more natural for them to say yes, because it feels like you're bringing things back into equilibrium. You're activating the law of reciprocity. Okay. Good. And so the recommendation was to attend the Career Happy Hour today. So hopefully this young gentleman is here. And if so, hopefully that was good advice, or at least helpful advice. And it may not be an end. It's just a beginning. Okay. It's a beginning. So if you have any questions about that, whether it's interviewing, market planning, networking, understanding the pandemic and how to activate your network that way, I'm all ears. Triple C wishes all a happy Friday from California. Cali, you going back to Cali? Anyway, yeah. And if you want to come on live, you can certainly do that. There is a link in the description, regardless of where you're joining from. On LinkedIn, I think you have to click like see more or view more or something like that. And there's a little hyperlink in there. You can join the live stream and have a conversation with me. Otherwise, put some questions in here. I want to get some answers out to you, offer you some value today. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but in Oregon, Portland, this last, in the last couple of weeks, we've had some pretty abysmal weather, and we're just not used to that here. We're not used to the ice and the snow and that sort of thing. We're not like folks back east that have, 1,000 snow plows per individual. Nobody here owns a snow plow. In fact, many of the organizations like the city and the county, the state, they don't own many snow plows either, except in the mountains. So there's not enough snow plows to keep things cleared out. And our city pretty much shuts down. The good news is when the city shuts down, guess what? It's shut down for everybody. It's not just one person. And now you have an opportunity to bump into or have serendipitous moments with people doing what? Sledding with their kids, building snowmen, that sort of thing. So sometimes we think that networking needs to be this super planned out and figured out situation or process, and it's not. It might just be serendipitous. It might be you bumping into somebody at a hill that kids are sledding on and just talking as your kid's going up and down the hill, having a great time. So think about it from that vantage point, and you'll always be accessible to people. So think about it. What else is going on? I recovered from a financial challenge with somebody that accessed a nefarious individual accessed my financial accounts, and that's been resolved. So that's behind me. I really, and that was the topic of last week's discussion, how to stay safe. So if you want, go back either on YouTube or perhaps LinkedIn into my activities, and you can see the session from last week. But please get the two-factor authentication, have complex passwords, and don't use the same emails for everything. Have a different email for stuff that's more secure, so that it's not out in the interwebs, in the ether, if you will. Good. Well, I don't see any questions here. Maybe I should just tap out unless somebody wants to come on live. I'm happy to have a conversation, see what's going on, see how things are shaking. Are you guys seeing opportunity? Are you seeing stuff out in the marketplace? If so, what are you seeing? What are you noticing? I'm seeing people get offers, still getting offers. Let's look at some of the current events here on the LinkedIn news. Let's see. Oh, interesting. Biden lifts green card restriction. That's an interesting news, especially for some of our candidates, clients out there from outside the country looking for employment or to get a green card. He announced Thursday he will be rolling back restrictions on permanent residency, green card applications. There was a number of roadblocks and legal issues to pausing the issuance of these green cards for immigrants in the prior administration. And let's see. Good. So that's good news for the labor market and for those of you who want to get residency in the United States. Good. What other news we have here? Let's see. Costco's bump to $16 beats rivals. That's interesting. Costco announced it's increasing minimum pay to $16 an hour. Excellent. Good for them. That's the way it should be, What's behind the housing shortage? That'd be a good thing to know. What's behind the housing shortage? I also shared recently we should all pay attention to the economy because each location is doing something different. And there's a lot of macroeconomic considerations nowadays for companies who may be looking to release some of their commercial real estate, and people are working anywhere. So maybe that means that their headquarters will move anywhere. We'll see. Let's see. Good. Congrats on recovering from the HAP. I have a company of interest per LinkedIn. Someone from my college alma mater works as a customer service person. What are the words to use to approach them for requesting a time to meet? Hi, we went to college together. Do you have time to meet? I mean, it sounds simple, but the things that I recommend in that case, Deborah, thanks for that question, is I always recommend that you start with the people you know first. And so if you have a company of interest, find anybody connected to your customer service contact there. Doesn't matter who it is, as long as you have a better relationship with them than you do with this unknown person, right? Because a lot of people, when you reach out cold, especially if they're maybe younger, they don't understand the value of networking yet. And you're spending a lot of time educating. That's been my experience. Not that it isn't valuable time, not that it isn't worth your time, and not that you won't get something out of it. I just find that it's going to take several outreaches to get somebody to say yes, regardless of their circumstance, status, relation to you, that sort of thing. So don't be surprised when you reach out to a single person that you won't get results. I would say, okay, I look at this company, and if it's a company of interest, and let's say it's a smaller company and there's only 200 employees, I would call that a smaller company. Okay, some people might argue that, but it's a smaller company. Maybe it's a startup and they're growing really fast, and they've grown 35 per 40% in the last year. Great. Guess who I'm calling or reaching out to for a connection or a time to meet? Everybody in that company, not just the ones that I think would be the best or the ones that are in my domain. Everybody, all 200 of those employees, I'm going to reach out to and ask for a conversation. Why? Because not everybody's going to say yes to cold outreach. In fact, I would be surprised on cold outreach if you got 10% return on a thin, ask like, hey, I see you work at this company and we went to college together. Okay. Not that it doesn't work. It's a thin ask. Now, if you have a compelling narrative and something strategic to talk about, and it happens to be a leader in the organization who's thinking about that exact thing at the exact time you reach out to him, that's called luck. But I believe luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So you were prepared, you had a compelling narrative, and you reached out to this person. Okay. Now, often if I'm reaching out to somebody who's a frontline employee in customer service, and I demonstrate through my LinkedIn profile that I'm an executive, that may make them really uncomfortable. Like, why would this person want to talk to me? What do they want from me? But again, that's not an unusual thing for anybody. So, it's one of those things that anybody could be asking that question. Gosh, here's a frontline employee. I'm an executive. Why are they reaching out to me? Okay. So if I'm reaching out to somebody and it's through LinkedIn, I'm answering 3 questions. 1, how do I know you? Well, in this case, it would be an alumni connection. You and I attended the same university. Go Beavers, if you know what I mean. 2nd, why do you want to connect? And in this case, here's what I'm hearing. Hey, I have a company of interest, probably because there's an open position. Hey, I'm interested in your company because there's an open position. I think that's really thin and it's kind of disingenuous. I would reach out from a genuine place of interest in the person I'm reaching out to, their company, their career path, their education, whatever that is. It's not about me and my need for employment. And I can't overstate that enough. I say it. It seems like I say it all the time. And yet people still do networking where they talk to people because there's an open position, they ask about it. It's just it's a slippery slope, if you will. It's a law of diminishing returns anytime you go down that path. Yeah, Terry, if you want to come on, go right ahead. I don't really care. The Andrew and Terry show. I mean, you could do that if you like. So let's see. Every conversation starts with a single person. It is how you leverage the conversation moving forward. Yes. Now, I wouldn't even call it leverage. I would call it incubation. Leverage, I think, is doing something to somebody. It's kind of like sales, leveraging people for sales. That's so sales is a transitive verb, meaning, hey, you're doing something to somebody. And so I'm not looking at this as an opportunity to do something to somebody. I'm looking at this as an opportunity to do something for somebody, to make a contribution, to add value, to help them in their career. Why? Because I know that the law of reciprocity works. And at some point that will come back to me. It may not be from that person, might be from somebody else. Okay. So first, I'm not a fan of cold outreach. Generally speaking, in career transition, it's not a good idea, or career search, or even looking for a promotion. Cold outreach is not the thing to do. The thing to do is to start with the people you know first, and see their perspective, give them your new perspective, or you knew what's going on new with you, because they may know you as the old you and not the new you. So it's important that they hear the new you, not the old one. And then when you do that, you ask for connection to other people at some of your target companies. And it's not that complicated, truthfully. We just tend to make it complicated. But it's certainly a habit. It needs to be a habit forming process. where my first response is not to do research online and apply to a job. It's to, here's a company I've interested in and here's why I'm interested in that company. So if you don't know why you're interested in the company, outside of they have a posted position, I don't think that's relevant. Every company's hiring. Let's assume every company's hiring. We talked about that before too. Every company's hiring. Every company has space for you as a remote worker. Let's take those as assumptions. That means when I reach out to somebody, it needs to be genuine, and it needs to be a genuine interest in something important to me, to them, to the future, to whatever the domain of interest they have or their expertise, right? And so keep that front and center. I think often we think that a single contact to somebody in customer service is going to lead to a job offer. And although that could happen, it's not likely. What we need to look at is, hey, repeated contact, not repeated or repetitious, but multiple contacts, let's put it that way, to somebody in customer service over time builds trusting relationship. That's outcome tangible. And trusting relationship leads to them recommending you for a job because they trust you. They know you. And they think you can do the work, and they're willing to stake their reputation on it. Okay. I think that's why many people have gone out of their way for someone like Terry. Terry has a lot of valuable relationships. Why? Because he's made contributions. He's, how would you say it? He's made the deposits in those relationships so that people feel good about helping him. So that said, I don't see any other questions here. I think we packed enough into a half hour, but if somebody wants to come on or has a question, you're welcome to do so. Again, there is a share button in the area below. And if you want to share this out to your networks, it'll give it more legs, if you will, and we'll have an opportunity to get broader acceptance and expand. So, well, no deposit, no return. I mean, no truer words have been said, Terry. No deposit in those relationships, no application of effort, no contribution. You can't expect anything back. Okay. You just can't. So Craig has one here. New to employment tied to a contract length. Our recruiter has contacted me and the hiring company will be reaching out next week for an interview. The position is remote initially, then we'll okay. Work in an office. Want me to report to HQ in Bellevue? I live in Cali. Not so ideal to travel back and forth, not ready to move. I have worked remotely for over 10 years and perhaps going to HQ in Washington may be negotiable. But I have no okay. So I don't think that's different. That's certainly not different. However, most consulting placement firms like that are going to ask you if you can relocate. Why? Because they have several different locations where they're placing people. And if you're open to relocation, then that's something you can negotiate. It's not any different than regular employment. Okay. And nothing's permanent. I can assure you that. I know people who have commuted to Bellevue. It's not a bad place. Okay. It is wearing to travel a lot. I get that. But it doesn't sound like you have an offer. You haven't even had an interview yet. So I think the order of operations might be out of whack here, is that we have to interview first, then get an offer, and then negotiate. But I think it's good that you're also outlining your negotiable items so that you can ask during the negotiation phase, what does this look like? How's that going to work? Ask the questions. Come on, Craig. I think we talked about this a couple 3 weeks ago, about, hey, you feel like you're negotiating, and telling is not selling, right? Selling is asking questions, understanding the customer, and understanding their situation and how you can add value. Because we sell our value. We don't sell our cost or our location. We sell the value we bring. Anyhow, it's just sales 101, I think. So good. Any other questions out there? Put them in the chat. Happy to answer. Live coaching is available. Click the link in the description. It's right there. I'll answer your questions live. I know it can be kind of scary to some people to do that. Looks like we have a little smaller crowd here today. I only see, I think, 9 people in the stream. So that's fine. We can bring somebody on and have a little conversation if you like. Or if you have a question, just drop it in the chat box. It's waiting on you. Otherwise, I'll call it a day. We'll do a short one today. I got thousands of other things I could do. Not that I'm inconvenienced by this. I love doing this. I just want to be of value. And if there's no value to be added, or you got all the value you needed, then that's great. Okay. I'm not seeing anything here. All right. Well, it's gone quiet, and I've run through my conversation topic for today. So if nobody's coming on and you don't have any questions, I'll wish you a good weekend. And we'll see you next Career Happy Hour. All right. Take care, folks. Be well.